What happens in modern day is people get up and have coffee. That is the number one worst thing you can do for your brain in the morning. But we have something called the cortisol curve. And if you wake up in the morning and you crush that curve by drinking coffee, your brain is inherently lazy. What most people do is they feed their brain all the wrong foods in the morning. You want to get up and have a large glass of water with some think of your body as a battery that needs to be charged. Your brain actually shrunk 3/4 of an inch when you were sleeping. If you drink the coffee, you've just dehydrated the brain even more.
And we are live. Dr. Patrick Porter, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Robert.
I'm excited to be chatting with you. So we're talking neuroplasticity today, how to train the brain. I feel like we always say it's all about mindsets and getting that dialed in, and you're taking it to a whole nother level, actually training the brain through devices.
Yes. Yeah, what we found was that you can have a positive attitude, but if your energy is low, it's not going to matter. Energy, basically, emotion drives behavior. So we have to get the energy up. Think of emotion as energy in motion. And a lot of people don't have enough energy in their brain to get things done. They're so tired by the end of the day. They're eating poorly. They're not moving and breathing. They're not doing anything that needs to happen. And that's because our brain is not designed for our day and age. I mean, we are living in a whole different universe than our brain was created for.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So my listeners are pretty, familiar with eating the right foods, getting the right sleep, moving your body, like the basic premise there. But let's dive into the history of what our brain has, evolved and acclimated to, and how we're just in such contrast to that, and then how we can take modern day technology and kind of revamp it, so to speak. So can you speak to just the evolution of the brain and why we're in a disconnect, so to speak?
Sure. I mean, when you think about when we were a tribal community, we would get up in the morning with the light of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that light of the sun actually, we have on every cell of our body a chromophore, which actually is a light receptor. And that light receptor absorbs light, sound, and vibration from the world around us. In the morning, it's more intense. Our brain has cortisol, dopamine, norepinephrine, all those things happening. And what happens in modern day is people get up and have coffee. That is the number one worst thing you can do for your brain in the morning. Because in the morning, you should not need coffee. You should have slept through the night. You should have had a great night's sleep. And that night's sleep we'll talk about in a minute, but that night's sleep should give you what you need. Now, if you have coffee 2 hours later, that's fine. But we have something called the cortisol curve. And if you wake up in the morning and you crush that curve by drinking coffee, your brain is inherently lazy. If you're going to do that for you, if you drink the coffee biologically, which food is good. The number one thing I tell people about brain fitness is you cannot think a bad diet. So, in eating ketone diet, one that's rich in ketones is good for the brain. So when you think about what most people do is they feed their brain all the wrong foods in the morning. They think they're eating well by having a banana, or something like that, a high carbohydrate. And that carbohydrates actually locks your brain out of ketones because there's two phases to digestion. The first phase is to digest everything and metabolize it. After that 4 hours, your body is making ketones. So the longer you can go without any solid food, the more you're feeding your brain. You're not feeding your brain when you feed it right away, unless you're eating a really good clean diet. So Let's go back to the morning. So we wake up in the morning, we get up in the morning, we're getting the light from the sun. We have more receptor sites in our eyes for mitochondria use. And mitochondria is actually, when we measure mitochondria, we're actually measuring how much light energy does the mitochondria bring into the cell and how much does it transmit it. Now this shows up as ATP. So if you think about ATP, if you get the right even back 10,000 years ago in the ancient traditions of India, they did what they called helos therapy. And what they do is if you had a mental disorder 10,000 years ago, they would tell you to get outside 2 hours before sunrise. Now, how did they know 2 hours before sunrise, our sun puts more infrared light on the planet than any other time? So that basically they were being biohackers 10,000 years ago. Now we can take equipment and do it any time of the day we want. But back then you had to get up at that time. So our body has this high cortisol. Now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're out there hunting and gathering. Now, when we're hunting and gathering, we're not working all day long in front of screens. We're not sitting on our butts. In fact, the new thing is, 20 minutes of setting is equivalent to having a cigarette. What they're saying is when you sit down, your body is supposed to be resting. Now we're working against it because we're stressing it out. Maybe somebody has coffee all day long. Or stimulating it with tea or sugar or whatever. Well, the biological system has to do what it does while you're doing what you're doing. So if you don't ever give it a break, but what would happen is if we were hunting and gathering, we would take time. Maybe we'd go by the river or we'd sit on a mountain. We would stop and pause and basically smell the roses. We might be glad we're alive, but we're in a whole different place. Now, what Tom Brady says, and he's one of our users, he says that for every 1 minute of exertion, you need 2 minutes of recovery. Most people don't do that. They actually go work out, and then they go from working out right to their car, right to their job. If you really want to get BDNF going, and that's neuroplasticity in the brain when you exercise, take 5 to 10 minutes. I actually wrote an article about this in Muscle Magazine, because if you take that time, you will bind muscle at the mind-muscle connection. Acetylcholine it's almost like you're blood doping, but you have the world's greatest pharmacy in your head. If you go right from one stressful event to another stressful event, the brain doesn't have the time to do the work it needs. We need to have recovery after we work out. You don't just go from work. That's why and also when you're working out, so many people take it way too seriously. It should be fun. It should be enjoyable. If you're stressed out or you're trying to push yourself this is not going to be good for you. You need to take your time. You need to breathe in between, reset your body. Now, we did this naturally. Imagine these bodies were designed for the Serengeti.
Mm-hmm.
The Serengeti at 2:00 in the afternoon, nothing's going on. There's no lions chasing zebras. There's no activity. It's too hot. So we are the biological descendants of all these generations. In fact, epigenetics says the 7 generations, but I just read something that said they've now tracked it back to 250 generations are influencing you. So it's not just you. It's not just what's going on. Now, the Hopi Indians said 7 generations were influencing them. So how did they know that? How do all these ancient traditions, now we're taking modern technology and we're showing how this is all true. Neuroscience is now proving, it sounds almost like a religion rather than it is a science, because we're proving out all the things they thought about in these ancient traditions. In the middle of the afternoon, your temperature is going to drop 2 degrees at 2:00, wherever you're at around the world. And this happens not because you want it to happen, not because you ate poorly, not because you did anything. It happens because the sun and the circadian rhythm, that sun out there, think of it as the mitochondria for our solar system. It's beaming codes to us. No matter where you're at around the world, your temperature is going to drop 2 degrees. That's why people run for tea time or coffee or whatever. What your body really wants is a nap. Now, most people don't have 4 hours. So what we've done with our technology, BrainTap, is we can condense what you would get in 4 hours in 20 minutes by using light, sound, and vibration. We took technology to do it because we don't have time to do it any other way. And the nice thing is then you liberate your nervous system. What we found is that it can reclaim the energy you lost in the morning. So you get 2 mornings. It's on a TED Talk right now with Julia Ard, who is our researcher. She went to Google and Microsoft, and they asked me in 2020, how can we prevent burnout? Because all these people had to go back to the office in 2021, and they were working from home in their pajamas, and now they get back into the pressure cooker. They want to quit. They're going to burn out. I said, what you can do is have them do a BrainTap session at 2:00 in the afternoon. Oh, we can't do that. That takes up too much time. We can't just pause for 20 minutes. I said, tell you what, give me 2 weeks and I guarantee you will never stop doing it. We could measure their work production. The average worker got 26% more work done if they took that 20-minute break. Because when your mind's fresher and you basically reclaim the day, and then what happens is toward the end of the evening, you should also crash. That cortisol curve should crash if you're not doing a lot of caffeine and other things to stimulate it. But if some people don't realize caffeine will stay in your system 6 to 8 hours. So some people, if they drink a cup of coffee at 2:00, they still can't sleep at night because it's not long enough for them. But if you do the right, and we could talk about sleep programming and whatever, but I always joke with the biohackers when I'm especially talking to Dave Asprey's, I'll say, I'll challenge any one of you. I'll do whatever I want up to bedtime. I'm going to do my BrainTap. I'm going to beat your score, because we have to get you to delta as fast as possible. Most people don't understand sleep. It's not about going into bed and going to sleep. That's probably the worst thing you can do for your nervous system. You do more neurological work while you're sleeping than when you're awake. But what we have to do is unwind our nervous system. If you're the type of person that hits the pillow and doesn't remember anything, but then wakes up in the middle of the night, that's because it's like you have this to-do list and your brain's still thinking about it, but you said, no, I'm going to go to sleep. But in the middle of the night, when you go through one of the sleep cycles and you get back up into maybe an alpha state, now you're going to pop back out into beta. Fear, frustration, and anxiety is going to wake you up because that's what's supposed to happen in the morning. But because you have this big to-do list that you didn't deal with, it's going to happen. So what we do is we recommend doing like a 4-8 breath before you go to bed and really unwind your body. Even if you don't have BrainTap, if you started doing breathing into the count of 4, breathing out to the count of 8, and then when you breathe in, you're going to think about what's going on in your day. Don't try to solve the problems, just think about them. But then as you breathe out, think about all the things you're grateful for, the things that were good about the day, positive events, because we know in science that if you're an optimistic thinker, you're going to live 6.5 years more than a negative thinker. That's already been proven in science. That's when you're talking about mindset. If you look at life as a challenge rather than a threat, your body is going to upgrade to the highest level epigenetics. And this is something your listeners might not know. Back in 2003, they mapped the human genome. Everybody knows that. But they only mapped 1% of it. Could you imagine graduating from school and you only answered 1% of the final test and they said you did it? No. But in 2018, we finally have technology that tells us that 99% of junk, it actually changes every 40 seconds. You change every 40 seconds based on everything. Your epigenetics, you have mirror neurons in every cell, not just your brain. You have more mitochondria in your brain than anywhere else, but every cell is a thinking brain. So it's always evaluating your environment. And it's either upgrading your epigenetics, you show up as your best self because you look at life as a challenge, or it's downgrading it because you look at it as a pessimist. And that pessimist, your brain will always prove you right. So if you think you can or you think you can't, when Henry Ford said that, he was actually talking about epigenetics. If you think you can, your body will rise to the occasion and you'll do it. And if you're, so that's what's kind of with ancient technology. People, this used to just be by default, whatever you thought you were. Now we can hack it, right? We can start doing things like mindfulness, meditation, relaxation, BrainTap, cold plunges, eating healthy, changing our diet, not listening to the advertisers who are just out to make a buck, but listen to people that are looking to make us healthy. There's a big difference.
Yeah, no, I totally resonate with everything you're saying there. I feel like it sounds kind of woo woo when you hear it for the first time, but I've just been diving deeper and deeper into this, and it's very true, very evident that the people that just have all this negativity, this aura of pessimism about them at all times, like they are more sick, they've got more chronic illness and fatigue, like they just like it's manifesting into physiological symptoms that are non-deniable. Whereas like I never get sick, and I think a large part of that is because I believe I never get sick, and like I think so much of it is tied to the energy and the mindset. And I 100% agree with what you're saying. We're about to roll up our sleeves and get super deep here. So if we're looking at a perfect day and how to map that out, so I do not wake up and eat a banana or anything like that, but I am guilty of drinking coffee, and that's mostly impairing my natural cortisol fluctuations in the morning hours. Correct?
Right. You want to get up and have a large glass of water with some Celtic salt. Think of your body as a battery that needs to be charged. Your brain actually shrunk 3/4 of an inch when you were sleeping. If you drink the coffee, you've just dehydrated the brain even more. So now you're fighting against your physiology. Now, like I said, 2 hours later, have your coffee. Have it after your workout. Because if you can work out in the morning, they've actually proven that 10 minutes in the morning is worth 20 minutes in the evening. Because now there should not be as much circulating sugar in the bloodstream. It's in your muscles. And if you can clear out the sugar that's in your muscles, your body will become a more efficient fat burning machine rather than a fat storage machine. If you've already eaten and your blood sugar is high and your muscles are full of sugar, your body's got to turn on that insulin pump and you become a fat storage machine because your insulin is a fat storage hormone. And that's why if you can fast in the morning, at least for an hour or two even, it's going to make a big difference. That means getting up a little bit earlier. Most people sleep way too much. They think they need 8 hours of sleep. And the reality is we only need 6.5 hours. Every study shows that. We need 1 hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep. And we'll beat any score, like any Whoop score or Aura or anything like that.
Okay. I definitely want to talk about sleep. When it comes to, I train fasted, so no worries there. What about decaf coffee? Like, is that, there's a little negligible amount of caffeine in decaf, but would that suffice?
Well, yeah, you're not going to have the same effect as the caffeine's going to have on the system. But still, think in terms of what does your body need to do to process through the body? If just the taste, what I recommend people do is herbal teas are a better solution. Like peppermint tea is a natural stimulant, but it's also a blood purifier. So you can do that and put some honey in it or something like that, or maple syrup, which doesn't affect your blood sugar. Because you want to keep your blood sugar at fat burning, especially in the morning.
Right. And then you mentioned taking a moment, 5 to 10 minutes post training to relax. And that's going to do what from a physiological standpoint?
Well, when you work out, the reason that we have such big brains is we started doing more physical work. We started balancing on our legs instead of on all fours. This creates something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. Now, what that does in the brain, even if you're not meditating, it's going to do it anyway. That's going to bring energy to the brain. So with that energy in the brain, you're going to have neuroplasticity. Now, what's going to happen is if the brain doesn't have to do anything new, different, or novel, it's going to hold on to that and going to start training the brain to respond to what you just did. So if you're working out, you want to have better gains in your workout, you take the 5 to 10 minutes afterwards and you visualize what you just did. And what happens is you reinforce those neurons that are firing together and wiring together, and it disassociates any of the other ones. So even if you have to stop your workout 5 minutes early, I would stop and maybe do the box breath, which is a very simple one. You just breathe into the count of 4, hold at the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, hold it out to the count of 4, and do that for 3 to 5 minutes. You're going to find that not only you're going to reset your nervous system, because when you worked out, you stressed out your system. So now you're going to calm it down. Now you get that quiet focus and you get that inner power that lets you handle, because it's going to be stressful. Life's stressful, and it's not always going to give us what we want. But those people that are adaptable and flexible are going to find that they make it through the day easily. So the secret here is when we work, remember, if you work out, now I'm talking about when we talk about 1 minute of exertion, 2 minutes of recovery, that includes your sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, you're not getting recovery. So you can't, if you worked out for an hour, let's say, you're not going to do 2 hours of, visualization. That would be, but that's going to go into your sleep cycle and help you.
So perfect scenario would be like sit in the sauna, post training, you get the heat shock proteins, then you can just focus on breath work, and then don't take your phone in there and just be scrolling through social as you're doing that.
Right. Just put on some classical music, put on your BrainTap, whatever it's going to be. I do that every morning. I have a sauna. And of course, if I do my cold plunge, I'm going to go in my cold plunge and I'm going to go in my sauna. If you came to my clinic, I have 6,000 square foot, all the research stuff you'd ever want to play with here. And we do a lot of training, and we measure the nervous system to show you what happens. When somebody just works out and goes and doesn't do anything else, the body stays in a state of sympathetic drive for hours, which means you're burning the candle at both ends. But if you take a minute, it's almost like when some people have to cry to get out of a certain state, or the laughter will get you to break a state. You have to break that state so the body knows, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm now recovering. And that's where it comes in. And doing it in a sauna is a great way to do it. In fact, if you have a cold plunge, they found that if you do the cold plunge first, do your workout, and then do the sauna, you actually increased your testosterone about 3 times.
Yeah, no, I do try and do the cold plunge prior to the training. Plus, if you're doing a cold plunge first thing upon waking, you don't need coffee and the caffeine to wake you up. It kind of works.
Yeah.
And then I like what you said too about the transitioning to the parasympathetic state, because I see so many people, they'll train hard and they'll get in their vehicle, they'll go drive, and they're eating a protein bar while they're driving. None of that is going to be optimally absorbed. They might be tracking their macros perfectly, but if their body's not absorbing and assimilating that, then it's all for naught. So you kind of have to ideally be in that rest and digest state to truly take in the nutrition you're consuming.
Yeah, even if you're not going to pray before you eat, which they have proven statistically that you digest more food, because you've set your body up, do some kind of breathing, be present when you're eating, like mindfulness eat. Don't just eat out, you're trying to get it down because you don't have enough time. Well, your body, when you're in a stress state, there's no blood in your organs and stomach. So it's not really what you eat, it's what you metabolize, digest, and use. So we've got to get the body into that state. And it doesn't take that much time. Once you organize your day in a way that says, you know what, you can drink water or something when you're driving. That's fine, because the body needs to be hydrated probably after a good workout, and most people don't. And put some salt water in your water then too, because our water is dead pretty much. By the time we get it, even if you use reverse osmosis or whatever, that's dead water. You got to add the minerals in it so it becomes alive again.
Do you have an opinion on structured water? Have you dove into that?
Oh, yes. All my water's structured. It goes through a tube with all these crystals, and it's almost like it went through the cycle of the earth again and goes through and you can measure the difference. That was one of the things with the Silva method. My dad was an instructor, and we started doing structured water in the 70s and showing people you can structure your own water. We've shown you can put your hands on a glass and put your hands on both sides of it. You will change the surface tension of the water, because you are producing right now, as we're sitting here, every cell of your body is producing infrared light, just like that sauna. You are pumping out 8-10 nanometer light. And if you go to NIH's website, they have on there, it says the biosphere. All illness starts in the field. So why are they giving us pills? We're energy beings, and we have a system of the body that they're now researching more and more with, especially in neurophysiology. It's called the biophotic system. You are a light being. Everything you do structures into light. You are structured water. And now if you're healthy and happy and whatever, you're beaming these codes. That's why when you go, some people say, I got a good vibe off that person, or I didn't get a good vibe off that person, because they're beaming codes to you. When you're around somebody, that's why I tell people you want to be around gainers, not drainers. Because there's always that person that they're sucking your energy, like energy vampires. Because our mitochondria is starving for light energy, and it will get it from any source. And this is not metaphysics. This is science now. So I always tell people, you don't have to believe me. This is science. It's all been proven. In fact, MIT, 2 weeks ago, I read a study that I was being asked to talk about on Fox Radio, where it showed that our brains actually transmit our brain energy up to 10,000 miles. So you think you're thinking in here, but you're projecting out 10,000 miles. You are affecting people that you don't even know you're affecting. And I told him, I said, there's a whole study, if you go on YouTube, it's called the Maharishi effect, where they actually showed people in prayer could change the crime of a city like Washington, D.C., and they proved it. So that's why when somebody says, why do I want to help better a billion brains? Imagine 1 billion people, positive in nature, looking to support each other, build great community. We wouldn't have the craziness that's going on today, where people think there's this 2 groups of people going after each other. There's crazy. We have one human group. Nobody gets out of here alive, but people will still try to divide us. And, it's crazy to me. We should all be in here. When you find something that works, you should be able to share it and not be, lambasted because somebody thinks it's weird or odd. Try it. If it doesn't work, I always tell people, go back to what doesn't work. You can try what I'm talking about. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, go back to what doesn't work. Because there's a reason you're here listening. You want to have solutions to a problem. We're all looking for a solution, but you've got to find the one that works for you. I have the one that works for me, works for thousands of people, but it might not work for you. But the worst thing is you don't try it. Give it 2 weeks and see what happens. And then if it does, then great. You got a new skill. If not, then, any problem, what I tell people, any problem you're having in your life right now, think of it like you're a superhero. There has not been one superhero ever that didn't have to go through the dark night of the soul. Once you go through that and you conquer it, you now have a superpower. Whether it's like you said, to get in a cold plunge. For most people would never do that. So now you have a superpower. You can get in a cold plunge. You go, well, that doesn't seem like a superpower to me. Yes, it is. Because so many people won't do it. Will you take the time to get into the sauna? Will you commit to getting up an hour early so you can take care of yourself rather than sleep in and have wasteful sleep because you're not sleeping efficiently? Those are superpowers. And when I tell people, they go, what do you mean? I said, imagine this. Back in 2015, they found a new part of the human anatomy. New. It's not, if you went to 2014, anywhere in the world in physiology books, you would not find the glial lymphatic system. It just wasn't there. But in 2015, this new part of the anatomy activated during level 4 sleep. Now, it's always been there, but we didn't know it was there. And I tell people, what other dormant powers do we have? Like X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at people like Wim Hof, they can inject poison into his body. He breathes it out. Now, he's just like anything else. He did it so we can learn to do it if we have the dedication and determination to do the things he's done. But a lot of people don't want that. They want what I call is the pill nation. They want the pill without the skill. You got to have the skill. You can use the pill if you want, but until you get the skill, you're going to be disempowered. And we've proved this actually we did a study in Brazil with opioids, because the equipment was actually designed for pain clinics back in the 80s. When I first decided to build this with a team at Light and Sound Research, I was much younger then. I was only 26 years old. And we started doing it. And then what happened was opioids came out. So then nobody wanted it because you just take the pill. But most people don't know opioids are only prescribed and approved for 4 weeks of use. That's it. So people get on them and they stay on them for the rest of their lives. So we took a group in Brazil, a graduate student. We took everyone who was getting certain surgery at the college, and we gave them, they all had to have opioids because they were going through the surgery and the doctors wouldn't let us do it. But half the group got to use our brain fitness equipment. At the end of 4 weeks, we said, you're done. Everybody had to try to get off the pills. The other group, nobody got off them. In our group, everybody did, because they didn't just have the pill. We taught them the skill of using their brain. And when you get into these alpha and theta states, these relaxation states, your body has something called hypermnesia, which is super memory, but it also has its own analgesia. You create a pain-free state for yourself. because some people do this naturally. They just have a higher threshold for pain and they get through it. But
Mm-hmm.
when we measure anybody that we've ever seen in the lab, and we've measured 30,000 brains. So when we measure somebody who has a big pain threshold, we always see very little beta and a lot of alpha and theta. These are altered states that most people go to, but some people are just running around in them. They're creative, they're intuitive, they always seem to be happy-go-lucky. They're in the flow, in other words. They're like in a flow
Mm-hmm.
state rather than a defensive, resistant state to life. And that's what we try to train people to do.
There's have y'all, like when y'all are testing people's brains, looking at different brain wavelengths, what have you noticed other common denominators? Like have you
But the
like when
biggest thing
someone
we've noticed is most people, you probably heard the expression, the masses are asleep.
yeah.
What we found is that 90% of the people that we see are over 60% delta while they're awake. That should be 10%. So when people say they're so tired they can't do it, they go home and they crash on the couch. If I measured their brain, I would bet you $1 million that they'd be over 50% delta. It's like pulling a parachute all day long because the brain doesn't operate in delta when you're awake. It operates in alpha and theta. There should be a brain balance of 45% beta, 30% alpha. If we have that, we have intuitive thinking and reaction thinking. And we have a lot of energy. We have high energy. When I measure high energy people, we find that people that work out really well and eat really well, they seem to get the brain fitness piece. But then if they add the brain fitness piece, it just accelerates it. But if any of those pieces are missing, the biggest deficiency we see is that the brain wants to go to sleep because our body and our brain are designed to heal, but not in sympathetic drive, in parasympathetic. That's the rest, digest, and recover. So intuitively, the brain knows I need to shut this person down so I can reboot like the old Microsoft computers, reboot the brain and get it to do it. But people won't do it. They'll go have a stimulant or they'll go eat or they'll go find, again, think of ancient technology. You and I just were out hunting and gathering all day long. We're going to meet by the communal fire. There's going to be a log burning there, or a few of them. Have you ever been mesmerized by a fire? You
All
just
the
sit there and go, yeah, yeah. Well, that fire is burning at 10 hertz frequency, alpha. Every cell in your body will now vibrate to alpha. That means you've downregulated your sympathetic and you went into parasympathetic. This happened every night in ancient cultures. Now that fire also is broadcasting 8-10 nanometer light. Just like a candle, when we show what happens when somebody meditates to a candle, but this is a fire. So your body knows that. Now, the thing that we used to do in ancient times, we didn't go, you know what, the logs are almost gone. Will you go get another log? I'm going to binge watch this log. No, we went to bed. But what happens now, because we have like Netflix and all sorts of other stimulus, we stimulate again by going, oh, it's the next. And we have, when I was growing up, which was a long time ago, right? We only had 3 channels. And the big thing was on the weekends, we got to try to stay up to hear the Star Spangled Banner, which happened at 12 o'clock, because we didn't have any overnight programming. Nobody was up at night watching television.
Mm-hmm.
But that all changed because they can get more money. They can,
I do not have a TV in my house. Like I do not want to be contributing to that. Like I don't want my kids watching it. Like I don't want, it's just crazy, man. Like you go and people leave the TV on whether they're watching it or not, because they're not comfortable unless it's on, which is just boggles my mind.
Right. And when the TV actually it's a 60 hertz electrical system. That's 10 hertz in the brain. They're being conditioned, just like they're being hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people get in front of the television and they won't even hear you. They're trancing out. I mean, if you choose what you're going to watch, and there could be some good programming, but when people tell me they have to sleep with the television on, I go, that's your problem. Because you're never getting into the deeper states of mind because the TV is keeping you locked out of the deeper theta. When you're in theta, by the way, each of these brain waves triggers different neurotransmitters. So when I'm a guest on any of the radio TV shows I'm on, they always say, we have a mental health crisis. I said, no, we don't. We have a physiological problem. People are sitting too much. They're not breathing. They're eating poorly. And then the brain is the natural outlet for it. It can't function. And they go, what do you mean? I go, well, just as a simple example, go to a birthday party. Kids are all acting really good, getting along, break out the cake. And as soon as they do that, somebody's fighting and arguing, pulling hair, punching somebody. I go, that sugar's a neurotoxin. I said, they just stimulated them to become crazy idiots. And they thought it was for good. Like Pringles, oh, they deserve to have chocolate or no, they don't. They deserve to have healthy foods that are going to stimulate. We need to train them early
Hmm.
And if they want to do that, then we have to teach them to have fat, fiber, and protein to slow it down, right? They can't just dump all that sugar into the bloodstream and think the brain's going to get the first cut of everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. When it comes to light therapy, kind of dovetailing off of the circadian rhythm that we mentioned in the beginning, like blue light blocking glasses are super popular right now. You want to have blue light in the morning upon waking and throughout the majority of the day. You basically want to bring that blue light level down with the natural setting of the sun, correct?
Yes. Yeah. You don't want to. When I see people wearing it all day long, I see there's a person that's depressed. I mean, if we
Mhm.
took blue light out of the equation, we'd all have seasonal affective disorder. So you don't want
Right.
to get, now they're talking about dirty light for sure. If I'm working on my computer, these glasses actually have light blue blockers in them. I have some stronger ones that have color to them. But when I'm in front of a computer, especially this close, if I'm 6 feet away, I don't have to worry about it. But because blue light only has a very low increment of light, it's not the blue light that's causing the problem. It's all the light that's causing the problem. Like I'm sitting in front of a screen here with millions of LEDs. It's not just the blue that's causing the problem. We're overstimulating because your eyes have more mitochondria than any other place square by square inch. And
Hmm.
remember, it's absorbing light energy and transmitting that light energy. So we're being bombarded by, if we're outside. In fact, they've shown if you can get up in the morning and have sunrise and sunset, visitations, where you're sitting there, and you wouldn't want to wear the blue blocking glasses at night because you want to see the green light at night. That tells your synapses to shut down. Blue light tells your synapses to open up. So when you're in the morning, you want that. So if you can get out and see, now we can't always do that. So I have a generator that I travel with and I have in my home. So whether it's cloudy or not, I can do my 15 minutes in front of the sun. And
Okay.
because everything they find that's healthy now, somebody's created some technology that can, assist that. Now, the best thing would be to do it naturally, but they've blocked all of our sunlight. They put pollution in the air. They've blocked the real rays of the sun because I have no idea why, but putting aluminum in the air is probably the worst thing that could have done. And they're not blocking anything. They're not blocking anything good. They're blocking everything. They're not just saying, I'm going to block out the negative infrared rays or something like that. They're just putting a bunch of pollution up in our ionosphere. And they've admitted it. It's like, why? But,
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's like they want to kill us or something. It's like our body needs light. And blue light is we live in a blue light planet. But at night, at about 6 o'clock, typically for most people, if you're going to work in front of the computer or sit in front of a TV closer than 6 feet, you want to make sure you have blue blockers on to help you to down regulate so you can sleep.
Makes total sense. Now let's dive into sleep. I want to talk about sleep for sure. So I got multiple little sleep packs. I mean, I turn the thermostat down. I just got one of those chili pad
Oh yeah, I have
cooling
that too.
mattress.
Yeah.
I just got it yesterday. Like I'm
Oh,
super excited about it. And I have like the blackout mask that I wear when I'm sleeping. I try and do all the right things, check all the right boxes, but I don't get that much quantity of sleep. Like I typically get 5.5 hours on average. So I'm trying to maximize the quality of that sleep. And for whatever reason, I seem to be flip flop from everybody else. Like I typically get a pretty good amount of deep in like zero REM. So what am I doing wrong there?
you have to stay present. So
Stay
don't try to
present.
get just at the beginning of sleep. Like I said, do the 4-8 breath before you go. Also, we need to get you to get me your information. I'll get you a brain tap and we'll play with it. And then maybe later, 6 to 9 months, we'll do a follow up or something. But the thing is that you have to unwind.
And see, I fall asleep pretty good. Like I don't feel overly stressed when I fall asleep because the REM comes normally in the later sleep cycles, right? Like
But
before you wake.
but that's why you want to do it at first. You want to have at least 15 to 20 minutes of REM before you get into deep sleep. If you're like dropping right into delta, what it's doing is it's saying there's all this information I need to deal with, but I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'm just going to sleep. That's not the purpose of sleep. Think of your body like a electric uh, coil. It needs to be unwound. And that can be just 10, 15 minutes. And what you'll find is then you're daydreaming. You're going to teach yourself to daydream while you sleep. That's REM.
I need to. It is crazy, man. Like I've been so wired, and I love everything that I'm working on. I just have my hands in a lot of different things, but I feel like my creative flow state has been diminished because I'm just on execution mode every single day. Like I've got all these tasks that I do, and I love them, but I don't feel like I allow myself time to be creative and just relax, which is definitely hindering my REM sleep, I think.
Yeah. So at night, if you're only sleeping 5.5 hours, you could spend a half hour before going to sleep just daydreaming. Don't try to sleep. Just try to daydream about what's going on. And don't try to solve any problems. Just kind of go through your day. And what I tell people is take all the good things that happen during your day and make them in color. Imagine you have a video studio and you can colorize them, put your favorite music in the background. You get in the habit of remembering them, putting together a success reel. But anything negative that happens to you, that's fine. Put it in a black box, put it behind you, let your subconscious worry about it. Don't deal with it today, but you're just giving your brain the freedom to unwind because
This is why a lot of people read fiction before going to bed, right?
yeah. Yeah, they liberate their conscious mind and they're out of, that's why some people watch comedy or do things like that. So, but I find that the best movies are the ones in my own mind. Once I start going, and it's something you have to learn to do. And that's what Silva did with my dad was a Silva instructor. So I grew up visualizing and doing all these things. And, some people can't do it because they've never practiced it. So but don't try to do something like it's not out of the norm. You're just kind of daydreaming about your day. And what'll happen is you're going to train your brain to solve those problems for you. And of course, your execution will still be there, but you'll have more energy because you opened up the gates in your brain to open up for that parasympathetic and get that deeper sleep.
Okay, and you mentioned also earlier that we don't need to sleep like the recommended 8 hours that you see tossed around a lot. So dive into that because I'm all for
Yeah.
not sleeping as long because I don't like sleeping if I can be doing something productive.
Right. Sleep is something productive, first of all.
It is for sure.
So remember, you're doing more neurological work while you sleep. You actually burn more fat while you sleep than when you're awake. So it's better than a workout. So think about it like you are doing something. You're doing a lot of neurological work. But what they found in all the longevity studies, 6.5 hours on average. So that means some people are doing 5.5 like you. Some people might be doing 7, but the average is 6.5 hours. And what you really want to look at is 1 hour of deep sleep, 2 hours of REM sleep. When we did our study in Australia with coal miners, because somebody said blue light's this, I said, well, I'm going to go to somewhere where they don't even have any blue light. These guys go to work in the dark, they work in the dark, they leave in the dark, they never see the light of the sun. We did a washout study with them. The average coal miner spent 10 hours a night in bed before we started our study. 10 hours a night. But they only got 1 minute of deep sleep, 0 REM sleep. So they weren't sleeping. Your time in bed does not equal sleep. Your time in bed equals you're just there. Now, what they did is they drank alcohol. And of course, we showed them, hey, this is when your sleep cycles tried to start, but it took it 6 hours to clear out all the alcohol. So we only took the people in the study that would give us 6 weeks with no alcohol. So you can go back after 6 weeks if you want, but during the study, if you're drinking alcohol, you can't really change your brain because there's a saying in AA that the alcohol is more powerful than you. I don't believe that, but if you put it in your body, it is. As soon as you put it in your body, it's like taking an aspirin. You can't say, aspirin don't work for me. It's already in your body. So the biological system goes through its cycles and does what it's supposed to do. So we got people to not use alcohol. It took us 3 weeks to get them to 70%. And when they were at 70% sleeping, all of their sleeping went from 10 hours to 7 hours.
Wow.
During that 7 hours, most of them were getting close to an hour of deep sleep and close to 2 hours of REM sleep. After 6 weeks, they all were there. They were all scoring in the 80s and 90%. And it was all about teaching them to sleep. And they were doing the alcohol because they thought that was putting them to sleep, but all it was doing was making them unconscious. It wasn't putting them to sleep. And that's what sleeping pills do, by the way. There's never been a study that shows sleeping pills give you more than 5 minutes of sleep. You're in bed, but you're not sleeping.
Yeah, I definitely have taken the approach that alcohol is just pretty much pure poison in the body and there's no justification for it if you're trying to optimize anything, really.
Oh, yeah. I tell people nobody can drink alcohol. And they go, what do you mean? I said, they took race car drivers. These are professional drivers. They had them drink a 6-pack of beer. None of them could drive right. So that must mean the body doesn't work when you're drinking alcohol. Nobody can drink alcohol. Now, if you're doing it, you're making a commitment to, destroying your body and you're going to live with those consequences. But really, nobody can drink alcohol.
Totally.
Some people think, I'm smarter when I drink alcohol. I play pool better when I drink all these kind of things. No, you're playing a game with yourself. The reality is that I don't know a biohacker out there that says, what I do before I go to bed is have 3 glasses of bourbon, and that, that's just not going to work, right? The success leaves clues. And, sometimes we're conditioned to, because of TV and radio and family that we think we need these things. But the reality is we need to find out what's going to get us. So a lot of people, what I tell them is for sleep hygiene, The easiest thing to do, of course, is use BrainTap. But if you don't have that, what you do is you go and you turn off all the lights in your house 2 hours before sleep. Get yourself a red light lamp that you can put in the room that you're going to be in for the 2 hours. If you really want to hack your sleep, have that. You can have other lights on too, but have that red light. They sell them, just red light therapy. Just put it in the room, because that's going to tell your cells it's time. It's like looking at that fire before you go to sleep and talking. It's going to start telling your body it's time for sleep. Don't eat anything solid 2 hours before sleep if you can. Now, if you have to, you do. But what's going to happen is the two phases of digestion. You need to digest that food, and then you got to start burning for ketones. At nights, when you're going to make all those ketones your brain needs. It's also going to make all your neurotransmitters. So if you don't get to, you want to prepare yourself. You don't want to walk into bed. It's like working out. You got to stretch out, work out your muscles, warm them up. Think of that 2 hours as warming up your brain. We call it brain prep, getting your brain ready for sleep. And then don't watch anything stimulating or read anything stimulating before going to bed. Now, you can read those creative books like, fiction or whatever, and you have watch comedies if that's what you're going to do. But I would not watch like the news. If you want to feel terrible, just watch the news.
The news is no bueno. I've been reading a lot of Dr. Seuss for my 3-year-old.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
looks pretty good.
Yeah. In reading before bed, they've proven for a lot of people that's the key. And some people can do it reading it on a tablet, but some people it might be too stimulating on a tablet. So you got to do it the old-fashioned way. Get a book, and read that book, and maybe just read a couple pages. Because it will synchronize the hemispheres. One thing reading does, because you're reading something logical, but then you're making pictures in your mind. So you're doing like a whole brain activity, and that will help you to sleep better.
So when you were doing this washout study with the miners, like what was the protocol that you put them through? I'm assuming using the BrainTap?
Yeah, we had them do the BrainTap 3 times a day. What I was mentioning earlier, they do the morning SMR programs, which is sensory motor rhythm to wake the brain up, to turn on the cortisol, dopamine, and norepinephrine, because we call it digital coffee. So it's what your brain would do naturally if you're out in nature and we were still ancient times. And they didn't have to do anything different about their diet, although we did recommend that they would drink half their body's weight in ounces of water and put salt in it. But that was up to them. I mean, we didn't force that, but we said if you want to add, that's the only thing. They could eat whatever they wanted. They could go to sleep whenever they wanted. They could do whatever. And then in the middle of the afternoon, this was set up in the mind itself. They got to go do a BrainTap session in the middle of the day. And that was to reboot them and give them more energy. And they all loved that because they had more energy, because they would walk out of the mind like zombies. They didn't have any energy. So we were giving them energy. And then at night, they would go home and they would listen to it on their app. Now, if you have the headset, you can do it that way. But in the coal mining study, and we had one group that just did it with the headset and everything, and the other group just did it with the app. The only difference was the app group, it took them twice as long to get there. So what they did in 3 weeks, they did in 6 weeks, because auditory is not as strong. Because when you close your eyes to meditate or relax, you actually start shutting down, and it shuts down 30% of the brain function. And when you're doing brain fitness, you want to have the whole brain working. And that's what light does. When you have the light stimulus through the eyes, your eyes are closed, so you're not looking at something. But what it does is it keeps the brain alert. And we've actually shown it turns off the default mode network. Because a lot of people, as soon as they close their eyes, their monkey mind takes over and all the stress and fear comes up in their mind. And that's not good. That's why I said we've measured these brains, 30,000 brains. I've only had 4 people that know how to meditate. And we've had people that brag, they go, I go to theta all the time. I said, well, we can test it. I have an EEG here. Let's have you do it. I'm saying, you're not going to theta. You're actually not even going to low alpha. You're mind screwing yourself, because he didn't measure it. That's why all these sleep technologies now that they can prove to people if they're sleeping well or not.
So talk to me about this headset. So it's audible and light?
Yes.
Is it like vibration as well?
We do the light in the ears. We use different frequencies. So there's something called Nogier frequencies. And Dr. Nogier did something called iridology. And there's meridian points in the ears. And acupuncturists would use it for 10,000 years. But what he did was he would use sound and light to stimulate these rhythms of the ear. So I put that into the machine. Every 2 minutes it changes. And this stimulates the vagus nerve, which is really important. And you can stimulate the vagus nerve in many ways. The best way we found is humming. When you hum, you stimulate and this stimulates the parasympathetic system. So what we do is there's a place in the inner ear where we can trigger it. So the light is actually creating the frequency. It's flashing, although it looks to be solid, but because it's faster than 30 frames per second, you can't see it. We're talking about like 182 to 1,000 something. So every 2 minutes it's changing. And then when you're listening, the eye lights are there providing energy because your eyes aren't just attached to your brain. Your eyes are brain matter. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do something called photobiomodulation, which means when a cell absorbs this energy and starts producing, what we know is that with light therapy, imagine in the middle of the cell, there's a little guy with a hand going around, and every time he goes around, it spits out one ATP molecule. Well, we know with red light therapy and the light therapy we use in BrainTap, when we get that into the brain, that cell, when it starts the Krebs cycle, they call it, and starts to produce ATP. And now every time it goes around, it's producing 32. 32, and that's how we can raise brain voltage. And I don't know if I said it here, but when we were born, our brain was at 18.1 volts.
Mm-hmm.
As we age, it goes down. If your brain goes down below 7 volts, like in our study we did in Florida, which is called Saving Your Brain, it's in a book that Dr. Kelly Miller did, but we used BrainTap during the study. We showed that as soon as we got their brain voltage back over 7, they didn't have dementia symptoms anymore. If that voltage went below 4, they had Alzheimer's. So it's all an energy equation. How can we get more energy into the brain? The more energy we get in the brain, the better it functions. Every brain knows how to heal itself. Your body knows how to heal itself, but we got to make the right conditions to heal itself. So when you think about sleep, think about it. This is where you're giving yourself time. That's part of that recovery I was talking about. All those goes that you're doing. Remember, if you worked like a Dickens for whatever, you need that deep sleep just to recover and keep everything optimized. And then you'll have more energy the next day. But like I said, most people are running around in delta. We need delta at night. They have a sleeping brain profile while they're awake. So that's why they stimulate with sugar and chocolate and teas and things like that, because they don't have the natural energy that they need.
Does the headset show people what wavelength they're in throughout the day, or how is that represented?
Ours, we have a device we call NeuroCheck, which does it, but we also have EEG here in the clinic. We are building a headset that does that, but it's not prime time yet. Ours, we know, because we've done thousands of studies, that we know that if you follow our algorithm, you're going to those brain states. Now, the first time you might not. Second time, about 80% of them will. By the third time, 100% in our studies they follow the algorithm. We've been doing this a long time. So it's not the same as when you go on YouTube and buy a binaural beat. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you right now, you can't, like somebody says, I'm going to do an alpha binaural beat. After 3 visits of doing most of those on YouTube, your brain's not going to do anything. You ever heard of nose blindness? Where you live near a dump and you don't smell it anymore. People come over, they go, how can you live here? It smells so bad. And you go, I don't smell it at all. Because the brain so the brain is really good at filtering things out, like living near an airport. You go, how can you stand at these airplanes going over? They go, I don't even hear the airplanes anymore. That's what happens with people with mold. They live in a mold house. Then they didn't do anything about it. So then the brain goes, you know what? That must not be bad for them. So I'm going to stop sending them the signal. And before they know it, they're cooking like that frog in the boiling pot that didn't realize that the pot was getting warmer. Their body becomes toxic because the brain is really good. They call it the reticular activating system. So it's always scanning your environment for what's safe, what's calm and cool, what's going to be good for you. And so, like when you're using your chili blanket, because I have one too, I have a chili machine. That's how we used to do it. I mean, we didn't get to, when you're sleeping on the cold earth, we're going to have the best sleep. The body's going to regulate, it's going to burn fat, and that burning fat in your body. Most people have so much stored energy. They could only eat 1 meal a day for a long time, and not have any issues. But the trapped energy is there because they're using the convenient energy of sugar instead of ketones. They're not tapping into the fat stores. That's where the energy is. But it takes energy to get that movement. And so when all the things are setting up for sleep is you want to remember that you're setting up sleep to give you all the resources. So it's like you're packing for travel during sleep, but your travel is just your next 24 hours. You're getting all the neurotransmitters built up. And we can prove this because when you go through those sleep cycles, you go into alpha, you're creating acetylcholine. You go into theta, you're creating GABA. And GABA is a precursor to DMT. So all these people doing these DMT trips, we did a study with Dr. Rosenthal in Dallas, and we were working with PTSD with the military. And some of the people did not want to do a psilocybin because they were going to do a psilocybin and BrainTap was going to be the integration. At that time, I had never done a psilocybin, so I didn't know what it would do. I've done it a couple times, but I tell people it's like playing golf. You got to have 8 hours to invest, and I can get the same thing in 20 minutes with BrainTap, so I don't need to do that. But what we did was we took people and we mapped their brains during a psilocybin, and we noticed that there was a region of the brain in every person. It was just to the right in the hippocampus that would light up with high gamma. So we created a whole series of gamma sessions, and now people are having a psilocybin trips with no psilocybin because it's your body creating GABA, which creates DMT that creates the experience. Now you can use an external stimulus like a mushroom or ayahuasca trip, and you get a bigger experience because it's almost like low dose. We can get your body to become more in its natural state. Then, like they say, as you want to be like a child, you want to have that awe, look at life as, something wondrous, not looking in the dread of, what life's about.
Speaking of that, so like with the popularity that, psilocybin has become, mushrooms have become, marijuana has become, like, have you noticed anything in your readings with studying people's brains that people that are using that on a chronic basis hindering anything? Like, is there like a net negative
We've seen if they overdo it, it's bad. If they use it, like we have a lot of people that use it microdosing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be really good microdosed. I mean, especially if you need the help because your brain's out of balance. But remember, you can't have any pill without a skill.
Right.
So if we find if you're dependent upon a substance, then you're going to have stress because are you going to still have the supply? Can you not perform? You want to be able to perform in any situation at any time at the top of your game. You don't want to say, "Oh, I didn't have my psilocybin this morning, so I can't think."
And if they're microdosing it, I would imagine what you're able to do with the BrainTap is pretty much right on par.
Yeah.
At that degree, anyways.
Yeah. Well, we find there's one of our doctors is Joquita Handy out of Orange County, California, and she's done a lot of studies with psilocybin microdosing.
Mm-hmm.
Not the one that makes you hallucinate, but just the one that gives you focus and concentration. And with a low dose, it seems to be really powerful for the brain. Now, you can have those big experiences if you want, and then let your body readjust and do it. Just like ketamine, we're having really good results with ketamine, when people do ketamine trips, but we're the integration. So you have the experience, you have all this neuroplastic change, which, by the way, the cannabinoid receptors, when you're smoking marijuana or eating marijuana, you're activating different regions of the brain that are good. But the problem is most people overdo it. You maybe occasionally want to have that trip or whatever, but if you do that every day, your body's not going to know what's real.
Right.
So
right.
you gotta stay present to win the game. So if you're always gone, I know some people that do some heavy duty marijuana and they're really smart people, I would say that they're the exception, not the rule.
What about nicotine? Have you noticed anything in nicotine with the brainwaves?
Oh yeah, nicotine is good. And if you buy the patches and you get the dose that's right for you, we've seen a lot in the biohacking world where people are doing that. We have a couple people here. I can't do it; it's too stimulating for me. Like when even the lowest dose, I just get too nervous. But we have a couple people here that do it. However the cycle is, like you do it for 4 days, off for a day, or whatever it is, and they claim that it helps them a lot. And we've seen what it does for the brain. It's really good. It will get that brainwave I'm talking about. You'll have that beta alpha brainwave. And it'll stimulate you to have that because it's more of a like awareness, like you're ready for action. Your brain is more aware but again, you want to prepare your brain. You want to do that experience so you can teach your brain to do it without it.
Right. Right. And each of the sessions with the BrainTap are 20 minutes typically?
Yeah, most of them are 20 minutes. Those are the ones you do in the middle of the day or the morning. We have some 10-minute ones for the morning because you shouldn't need to relax too much in the morning because you already had a good night's sleep. And then at night, you just put it on and go to sleep. They can be 25 to 30 minutes, but you're not there anyway. Most people only last 10 to 15 minutes and they're out. And the machine drops you into delta because the quicker we can get you to unwind, going through the brainwave states and get you to delta, the sooner you can start that sleep cycle, the more delta. Now, you're not having a problem with deep sleep. So yours is we need to get you more daydreaming during sleep so you can have more dreams because those dreams are what's going to create the REM.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I need to get more dreams in my life for sure. Now this is super, super interesting. So where do people go to find out more about the BrainTap device?
They go to BrainTap.com When they go there, there's actually a link. They can get the app for free for 14 days. If you don't like it, just cancel it. But for 14 days, you get to use the app. And there's one in there that's a 21-day quick start. I always recommend people do that. So, and it's a session I've already picked out in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, but there's over 3,000 sessions. So there's a lot of ways that you can, but I recommend the quick start first just to train the brain, because we need to, it's almost like formatting a computer. We need to get the brain to remember the morning, this is the kind of brainwaves we want. In the afternoon, these are the kind of brainwaves we want. And at night, these are the kind of brainwaves we want. And once we train the brain to do that, it'll start regulating itself. And that's the good part, that the brain can learn at any age.
And what about your book? You got a book coming out too, right?
Got this book that's coming out. I just got a galley copy myself. It's going to be out and available, but its pre-orders are now. If you go to brainfitnessblueprint.com, you can see the links to buy it. And if you buy it, I'm actually giving away $1,000 worth of training for free, just for buying the book. It's on. I have a college online called the Integrative Wellbeing Institute. So I got some courses on brain fitness that once they get the book, it'll help them to integrate what's in the book, because we have courses that are designed for it, but we don't have to pay for those. Just go and buy the book, sign up for the free training, and we'll get you started on brain fitness.
And you said that one launches when?
October 21st.
October 21st. Okay, cool.
So they're
Do you feel like
pre-orders right now? Yeah.
Do you feel like society as a whole is becoming much more receptive to, biohacking in general has obviously gotten much more popular, but do you think people are putting their focus in the right spots, or do you feel like it's totally misguided and they don't recognize
I think
that all
one thing is that, of course, in business, you want to have results. So if you're not getting results, they're not going to listen to you. So I think we did, like I said, the study, we're calling it, you need a brain break, not a coffee break. And what we showed, like at Google and Microsoft, that we're going to start changing the way the work. It's not about more food. It's not about stimulating you with that. It's about getting your brain regulating, getting breathing right, and then getting some movement, maybe doing some yoga or Tai Chi. There's more to it than just the equipment, right? It's, you got to eat right, you got to move. And I think when I see business now, they're really changing their tune, because it's hitting their bottom line, and they have happier employees. Happiness is an equation of energy too. I tell people it's all about frequency. What are you frequently seeing? If you're a high frequency person, you see high frequency foods, high frequency activity, high frequency people you hang out with. If you're low frequency, you always see low frequency food, low frequency activities, and you want to blame everybody. So we get to change our frequency. And it starts with the food you eat, then with the way you're moving your body, and then you can start training your brain to maintain that. So it's like riding a bike. We got to get everything up to speed so you don't lose your balance, and keep going.
This is all super interesting. Like I said, I've been diving deeper into just the energy system in and of itself, and I feel like there's this, like, people want to separate the body and the brain. It's all the body, like it's all one unit, one being. And I feel like if we get the pulse on that dialed in, everybody wins. So this is super exciting work. I'm gonna be diving into this. I'm gonna check out the BrainTap for sure.
Okay, yeah, I look forward to helping you, and then we can get it to you, and then maybe in a few months we'll talk again. See what's
100%. Well, I will link out to everybody so they can easily find you. I'm super excited for your book. That'll be launching in about a month. So actually, by the time this podcast goes live, your book should be live. So best of luck with that as well.
All right. Thank you.